The morning at Forward Operating Base. Alder Ridge always started the same way. Before the sun fully cleared the broken horizon, before the wind picked up enough to turn the air into a moving wall of dust. Rachel Miller was already awake. She sat on the tailgate of a medical supply truck, elbows resting on her knees, gloves halfway on, half off. In front of her, the medical tent was still lit from inside, a dim glow leaking through worn canvas. Inside, someone coughed. Somewhere farther down the base, a generator kicked into uneven rhythm, like it was struggling to stay alive. Rachel didn't rush. She never did. She checked her trauma kit the way other soldiers checked their weapons, methodically, without emotion showing on her face, but with absolute attention. Tourniquets, chest seals, gauze, IV kits. Each item had a place. Each item mattered. A young private walked past, then slowed when he saw her. "Morning, Doc Miller," he said. Rachel didn't look up immediately. She finished securing a pouch first. "Morning," she finally replied. The private hesitated like he wanted to say more, then just nodded and moved on. That was common around her. People didn't always know what to do with her silence, but they came to her anyway when it mattered. Inside the medical tent, she stepped into controlled chaos. 2 soldiers sat on folding chairs, one holding a bandaged hand, the other with dust-caked burns along his forearm. Neither looked seriously injured, but both watched her closely as she moved between them. "Same again?" she asked the burned soldier. He gave a half smile. "If you can make it stop stinging, I'll owe you my last pack of gum." Rachel didn't smile back, but her hands were already working, clean, efficient. She adjusted the dressing, checked for infection, wrapped it tighter without causing unnecessary pain. "You're good," she said. "Don't touch it, and stop pretending you're tougher than the heat." The soldier exhaled like that was the worst insult he'd heard all week. From across the tent, another medic called out, asking for supplies. Rachel answered without looking over, already knowing what was needed. It wasn't loud work, but it never stopped. Outside, the wind began to rise. By mid-morning, the base shifted into alert rhythm. Not alarm, never full alarm, but that quiet tightening of discipline that everyone felt in their shoulders. Rachel noticed it before anyone officially said anything. The radios had changed tone. Shorter transmissions, faster replies, less joking between channels. She stood near the supply rack, counting inventory, when Captain Harris entered the tent. He didn't look around much, just found her immediately, like he expected her to already know he was coming. "Rachel," he said. That alone made her straighten slightly. Officers didn't usually use first names in this tone unless something was changing. "What's happening?" she asked. Harris glanced toward the entrance, then lowered his voice. "Recon unit is moving into Sector 12 this afternoon. We're short on med coverage, and command wants you attached." Rachel didn't respond right away. She set a box down carefully before speaking. "I'm assigned to medical support here," she said. "You were," Harris corrected gently. "This overrides it." That meant it wasn't optional. Rachel looked at him for a moment longer than usual. Not defiance, just calculation. Sector 12 wasn't new. It was one of those areas everyone talked about in briefings, but nobody liked describing in detail afterward. Infrastructure collapse, unstable contact zones, reports that changed depending on who was reporting. "What's the objective?" she asked. Harris hesitated just long enough to make her notice. "Assessment and route confirmation," he said. "In and out." Rachel nodded once, but her expression didn't change. "In and out," she repeated quietly, like she was testing whether the words actually held. Harris stepped closer, lowering his voice further. "Listen to me," he said. "This isn't a heavy engagement mission, but it's not clean either. They need someone who can keep people alive if things go wrong." Rachel's eyes flicked briefly to the supplies behind her. "That's assuming things go wrong," she said. Harris didn't answer that. Instead, he added, "You leave in 40 minutes. Then he left. 40 minutes was never just 40 minutes. It was packing, checking, repacking, and the kind of mental preparation that never really finished. Rachel moved through the medical storage like she already knew what she would need, pulling extra trauma kits, compact airway tools, emergency plasma. She worked alone. No one interrupted her, but people watched. They always did when a medic was being pulled out with a recon team. It meant risk. It meant uncertainty. It meant someone might not come back the same. A younger medic approached near the end, holding a sealed kit. "You think it's bad?" he asked. Rachel didn't stop what she was doing. "I think it's never good when they pull med support last minute," she said. "That's not an answer." She finally looked at him. "It's the only one you're getting." He nodded, accepting that more than he liked. As she closed her pack, she paused for a moment. Not because anything was missing, but because something about the timing felt off. Not fear, recognition. The kind she had learned not to ignore. The transport was already running when she reached it. A small tactical team was loading in. Not a full unit, tight formation, minimal gear, focused purpose. That usually meant speed over comfort, speed over backup. Rachel climbed in without ceremony. Inside, she took a seat near the side, placing her medical pack between her boots. One by one, she observed the people she would be responsible for without being officially in command of them. Sergeant Cole sat across from her. Older, steady posture, eyes always moving. Private Hayes sat near the back, adjusting his vest twice in the same place, like it would suddenly become perfect. Lieutenant Walker sat near the front, already focused on a handheld map display, speaking quietly with the pilot through comms. Walker glanced back once. "Doc Miller," he acknowledged. "Lieutenant," she replied. That was the full exchange. The vehicle shifted forward. Dust swallowed the base behind them within minutes. As they moved out, the terrain changed slowly at first. Then, all at once. The maintained perimeter roads gave way to fractured pavement, then to dirt, then to stretches where nothing looked maintained at all. Rachel watched the landscape through the small side opening. She had learned early that the outside world told you things before intelligence reports caught up. Collapsed structures in the distance, empty outposts, a burned vehicle half sunk into sand. She noted everything but said nothing. After a while, Hayes broke the silence. "So, this is just recon, right?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Cole didn't look at him. "That's what they said." Hayes laughed once, but it didn't land. Rachel finally spoke, not looking away from the outside. "Recon means we go in first and find out if it stays recon," she said. That shut the conversation down faster than anything else could have. The vehicle continued forward. About an hour into the movement, the radio changed again. Rachel noticed it before the lieutenant reacted. A delay in response. A repeated transmission request. Then a pause that lasted too long. Walker adjusted the channel. "Command, confirm route integrity," he said. Static answered first. Then a voice, compressed, controlled. "Proceed to checkpoint Echo. Avoid main corridor if visibility drops below standard." Walker frowned slightly. Rachel caught that expression. "What's wrong?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. Then, carefully, "That wasn't the original route." Cole leaned forward slightly. Hayes stopped moving altogether. Walker looked at the map again. "Original route is flagged," he said. "We're being redirected." Rachel felt it then, not panic, not concern, but confirmation. Something had shifted before they left base, and they hadn't been told everything. The vehicle rolled forward anyway. No one ordered it to stop. By the time Sector 12 came into view, the wind had picked up enough to blur the edges of the world. Rachel tightened her grip on her pack strap without thinking. Ahead, the landscape opened into a broken settlement. Structures standing at angles that didn't make sense anymore. Roads cut by impact craters. Silence where there shouldn't have been silence. Walker lowered the map slightly. "All right," he said. "Eyes up. We're in it now." Rachel looked forward into the dust. And for the first time that day, She stopped thinking about routine, because whatever was waiting in Sector 12 wasn't going to behave like routine at all. The vehicle slowed as it crossed the broken edge of the settlement. What used to be a town was now a scattered outline of itself. Walls without roofs, roads split open like torn fabric, and windows staring out with nothing behind them. The dust didn't just move here. It stayed in the air, hanging in layers like something unwilling to leave. Rachel Miller shifted slightly in her seat, adjusting her balance as the vehicle hit uneven ground. Her hand stayed on her medical pack strap, not because she expected immediate danger, but because her body had learned to stay ready even when her mind tried to relax. Lieutenant Walker raised a fist. The vehicle stopped. For a moment, no one spoke. Cole scanned the buildings. Hayes swallowed hard and looked down at his gear like it might suddenly offer reassurance. Rachel was already watching the edges of the street. "Foot movement from here," Walker said. The ramp dropped with a metallic groan. The heat outside felt sharper than before, as if the wind carried more than dust. Rachel stepped down last, not because she was unsure, but because she always took in the full space before committing. Old habit, one that had saved her more than once. The team formed up quickly, tight spacing, controlled movement. Walker checked his compass, then pointed forward. "Checkpoint Echo is 2 blocks east. Stay close, no detours." Cole nodded once. Hayes adjusted his grip on his rifle. Rachel followed without argument. They moved through what had once been a residential block. Doors hung open. Personal belongings were scattered but not looted in a chaotic way. More like people had left suddenly and never come back. Rachel noticed a child's shoe near a doorway. She didn't stop, but her eyes lingered for half a second longer than they should have. Walker's voice came through quietly. "Eyes forward." They continued. The silence here wasn't natural. Even abandoned places had sound. Wind through broken windows, animals, shifting debris. This place had something else. Absence. Cole slowed slightly as they passed a collapsed intersection. "I don't like this," he muttered. "No one asked," Walker replied without looking back. That shut him up again. Rachel glanced at Walker. His tone wasn't emotional, but it was tighter than before. Pressure was building somewhere, above their level. She could tell. She just didn't know where it was coming from yet. 2 blocks in, they found their first living presence. A man sat against a wall, half hidden in shadow, one leg extended awkwardly. Dust covered his clothes. His head was tilted slightly forward, like he had been sitting there for a long time and no longer had the energy to correct himself. Hayes stopped instantly. "Civilian," he said quietly. Walker raised a hand. "No engagement change," he ordered. Rachel stepped forward before anyone else could react. Cole turned his head slightly. "Doc!" But she was already moving. The man's breathing was shallow. Not dead, not stable either. Rachel knelt beside him, placing her kit down carefully. Her movements were calm, automatic. "Hey," she said softly. The man's eyes shifted toward her voice, slow and unfocused. Rachel checked his pulse at the wrist. Weak, possible dehydration, possible internal injury. Hard to tell without full assessment. Hayes shifted behind her. "We don't have time for this," he whispered. Rachel didn't look back. "He's alive," she said simply. Walker stepped closer, his voice lower now. "We're not here for civilian extraction." Rachel opened her kit. "No," she agreed. "We're here to move through a dead zone and pretend people aren't still in it." That made Cole glance at her. It wasn't disrespect. Just awareness that she had said something that could become a problem later. Walker exhaled slowly. 2 minutes, he said. Rachel nodded once. That was more than she expected. She worked quickly. Fluids, basic stabilization, checking for obvious trauma. The man flinched when she adjusted his shoulder. Rachel paused. "Easy," she said. The man tried to speak, but nothing came out clearly. Hayes looked away, uncomfortable. Cole kept watch on the street. Walker checked the corners. The world outside didn't wait politely. Rachel finished what she could. "He needs evacuation," she said quietly. Walker didn't respond. She looked up at him. That silence told her everything. "No extraction possible," he said finally. "We move." Rachel stayed kneeling for a moment longer. The man's fingers twitched slightly against her sleeve. That small movement was enough to make her pause internally, not emotionally but professionally. He wasn't beyond help, just beyond convenience. She tightened the strap of his makeshift bandage. "Stay awake," she told him. Then she stood. Cole looked at her as she rejoined the formation. "You can't save everyone," he said quietly. Rachel didn't answer, because that wasn't the argument she was having. They moved again. The deeper they went, the more the environment changed. Not physically, but in how it felt. Distances seemed longer than they should be. Sound didn't carry properly. Even their footsteps felt muted, as if the ground was absorbing them. Walker stopped at a corner and checked the map again. His jaw tightened slightly. Rachel noticed. "You're off route," she said. He didn't deny it immediately. That was answer enough. "We had a reroute before insertion," he said. "You didn't tell us," Cole said. Walker finally looked back. "I was told after you were already in transport," he replied. That didn't make anyone feel better. Hayes shifted nervously. "So we're just adjusting as we go?" he asked. Walker ignored the question and started forward again. Rachel stayed beside Cole for a moment. "This isn't clean recon," she said quietly. Cole nodded once. "No," he agreed. "It's not." The radio crackled again, this time louder. Walker raised it immediately. "Command, confirm enemy activity in Sector 12. Static. Then a delayed response. Minimal confirmed presence. Proceed with caution." Cole let out a short, humorless breath. "Minimal," he repeated under his breath. Rachel didn't react outwardly, but she filed that away. Walker lowered the radio. "We keep moving," he said. They did. But now, everyone was watching differently. Hayes was no longer trying to look confident. Cole had shifted into full scanning mode. Walker's posture had changed, less commanding, more calculating. Rachel stayed the same. But internally, she had already started preparing for the first injury. Because in her experience, when information lagged behind reality, it wasn't a question of if someone got hurt. It was when. They turned into a narrower corridor between two partially collapsed buildings. The wind dropped suddenly. That alone made Rachel stop for half a step. Silence like this didn't mean safety. It meant something was blocking sound. She opened her mouth to speak. The first shot cracked through the air, then another, and the world stopped being quiet entirely. The first burst of gunfire didn't come with warning or distance. It came from within the narrow corridor itself, like the street had been waiting to close around them. Stone chips exploded off the wall near Rachel's shoulder. Dust snapped into the air in thick, choking bursts. The sound was too close to process cleanly. It wasn't a firefight yet. It was contact at the worst possible range. "Down!" Cole shouted. The team dropped instinctively, spreading into whatever cover they could find. The corridor wasn't designed for movement under fire. It was a trap of broken walls and collapsed entry points. Rachel didn't hesitate. Her body moved before thought caught up. She turned toward Hayes. He was still upright for half a second too long, confused, trying to locate the threat instead of reacting to it. That half-second cost him. A round hit the edge of the wall beside him. The impact threw fragments into his side. He staggered hard, losing balance immediately. "Hayes!" Cole yelled. He went down against the ground, rifle slipping from his grip. Rachel was already moving. She slid into cover beside him, pulling him closer behind a fractured concrete slab. Her hand pressed immediately to his side, not to comfort him, but to assess. Blood was already soaking through his vest. "Stay with me," she said sharply. Hayes's breathing was uneven. I didn't see." "Don't talk," Rachel cut him off. Her fingers worked fast, cutting open part of his gear to find the wound. It was abdominal, bad angle, likely internal bleeding, not immediately survivable without evacuation and surgical intervention. Behind her, the firefight escalated. Cole returned fire from a low position, controlled bursts. Walker was shouting into the radio, trying to establish contact over the noise. Rachel barely heard any of it. Her world narrowed to the wound and the rhythm of Hayes's breathing. Another round hit nearby concrete. Dust poured over her hands. "Doc!" Cole called. "We need to move." Rachel didn't answer yet. She applied pressure, quickly packed the wound as best as conditions allowed. Hayes clenched his jaw, trying not to scream. Walker's voice cut through the chaos. "Command, we are under contact. Repeat, under heavy contact in Sector 12. Static answered first, then a delayed response. Too calm for what was happening. "Copy. Adjust posture. Maintain mission integrity." Walker froze for half a second. Rachel looked up briefly. That sentence meant exactly what she feared it meant. Mission still primary, not them. A second transmission came through moments later, sharper. "Extraction authorized. Immediate withdrawal. Do not delay for casualties." Cole heard it too. His eyes flicked toward Rachel and Hayes. That was the moment everything split. Hayes tried to move slightly, pain forcing a broken sound from his throat. Rachel pressed him down gently but firmly. "You're staying still," she said. Walker crouched behind partial cover, voice tight. "We leave him," he ordered. "Now." Cole didn't argue. He just shifted his position, preparing to fall back. Hayes heard the words. "No," he whispered. "No, I can move." Rachel looked at him directly for the first time since the ambush started. He was pale now, shock setting in. His hand grabbed weakly at her sleeve like he was trying to anchor himself to something real. She didn't pull away. Walker shouted again. "Rachel, we don't have time!" Another round struck nearby, forcing Cole lower. The team's position was degrading fast. Rachel checked Hayes' wound again. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were locked on the reality forming in front of her. If they left him now, he would die within minutes. If they stayed, they risked all of them. Walker moved closer, crouched low, voice controlled but urgent. "That's an order," he said. Rachel didn't respond immediately. The air felt tighter than the dust. Cole glanced between them. "Doc!" Hayes was slipping in and out of awareness. Rachel exhaled once, slowly. Then she spoke. Not loudly, not emotionally. "He's not stable enough to move," she said. Walker's expression hardened. "Then he's not coming." That was final in his mind. Rachel looked back down at Hayes. His breathing hitched. "I don't want," he started. Rachel placed her hand briefly on his shoulder. "I know," she said quietly. Another burst of fire hit their cover. Concrete cracked. The sound forced Walker and Cole to shift positions again. Time was collapsing. Walker's voice cut through again, sharper now. "Last warning, we move or we don't make it out." Cole nodded slightly. He was ready. But Rachel didn't move. That was the difference. She adjusted Hayes' position carefully, making him more stable against the cover. Then she reached into her kit again. Walker saw it immediately. "Rachel, don't do this." She didn't look at him. "I'm not leaving him," she said. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. It was final. Cole's eyes narrowed slightly. "You can't hold this position alone." "I won't be alone," Rachel replied. Walker stepped closer, frustration breaking through discipline. "You're risking the entire team for one soldier." Rachel finally looked at him. Her voice stayed even. "I'm keeping one soldier alive," she said. "The same job I've always had." Another round snapped past them, forcing Walker to duck. The moment stretched thin. Cole made a decision first. He looked at Walker. "We can stabilize enough for movement," he said reluctantly. "Not ideal, but possible." Walker hesitated. Rachel was already working again, pulling supplies, adjusting her grip on Hayes' vest. Hayes grabbed her wrist weakly. Don't leave me, he whispered. Rachel tightened her hold slightly. I'm not, she said. Walker looked at the corridor, then at the advancing pressure of fire. Finally, he spoke. Fine, he said tightly. We do it your way, but we move on my command. Rachel nodded once. Agreed, she said. But neither of them was fully convinced the plan would hold long enough to matter. And outside the cover, the gunfire kept closing in. The corridor had become something smaller than a battlefield. It was a pressure point. Every shot that hit the walls made it feel like the space was tightening around them, forcing choices faster than anyone wanted to make them. Dust hung in the air so thick Rachel could taste the concrete in it. Hayes was still alive, but barely holding on. Rachel stayed low beside him, one hand steady on his wound dressing, the other adjusting the improvised support around his torso. She wasn't rushing. Rushing meant mistakes, and mistakes meant losing him before they even tried to move. Behind her, Cole kept watch on the left angle. Walker was on the radio again, voice clipped, controlled, but increasingly strained. Extraction corridors compromised, Walker said. Requesting alternate route. Static answered. Then a delayed response. Negative. Maintain current vector. Extraction window is limited. Cole muttered something under his breath that Rachel didn't fully catch. Walker lowered the radio slowly. That's it, he said. We don't get another route. Rachel looked up briefly. Then we make this one work, she said. Walker shook his head slightly. That only works if everyone can move. His eyes shifted toward Hayes. The meaning was clear without being spoken again. Cole shifted his stance, uncomfortable with the direction this was going. We can carry him part way, Cole said. Short distance, if we control movement speed. Walker immediately responded. That slows us too much. Rachel didn't argue yet. She checked Hayes' breathing again. His eyes were half open now, unfocused. Shock was deepening, but he was still there, still holding on. That mattered to her more than the map. Walker stepped closer. Rachel, he said more quietly now, if we lose mobility here, we all die. She didn't look at him immediately. I understand the risk, she said. That's not what I asked. She finally met his eyes. And there it was, the split between command logic and field reality. Walker continued. You can stabilize him all you want, but he is not surviving a full extraction under fire in this condition. Even if we carry him, he's a liability. Cole shifted slightly at that word. Rachel didn't. She had heard worse terms used in worse situations, but she didn't accept them easily. He's a person, she said. Walker exhaled sharply. I didn't say he wasn't. A brief silence followed. Another round cracked somewhere deeper in the corridor, forcing everyone to lower instinctively. Time wasn't waiting for their disagreement to resolve itself. Cole looked at Rachel. Doc, what's your read? He asked quietly. That question mattered more than orders in moments like this. Rachel looked at Hayes again. She assessed everything in seconds that felt longer than they were. Blood loss, responsiveness, breathing pattern, shock progression. Not guesswork, pattern recognition built over years. Her voice stayed steady. He won't survive full delay here without surgical intervention, she said. Walker nodded once, like that confirmed what he already believed. Rachel continued. But he can survive stabilization long enough for controlled movement. Cole frowned slightly. You're saying we move him? Yes, Rachel said. Walker immediately responded. That's exactly what I'm saying too. We stabilize and extract. Rachel didn't finish the thought yet. She adjusted Hayes' position slightly, making him more secure against the wall. Then she added, but we don't move fast. Walker's expression tightened. That's not an option. Rachel looked up again. It is if you want him alive when we reach extraction point. Cole glanced between them. The tension wasn't just tactical anymore. It was philosophical. Speed versus survival. Group integrity versus individual responsibility. Walker stepped closer. If we slow down, he said, We risk full engagement in open ground. Rachel answered calmly. If we rush him, he dies before we reach anything. Silence again. Hayes stirred slightly, barely conscious. Rachel leaned closer to him. You're still here, she said quietly. More to him than anyone else. Walker looked away for a moment, jaw tight. Then his radio crackled again. Extraction window closing. Recommend immediate withdrawal. That was the pressure point. Final decision time. Walker turned back to them. I'm not authorizing a full halt, he said. We move, now. Partial stabilization only. Cole didn't like it, but he nodded. Rachel understood what that meant. Compromise under fire. The least stable version of survival. She didn't argue further. Instead, she tightened the final wrap on Hayes' side and checked his airway. Listen to me, she said to him softly. His eyes flickered slightly toward her voice. You're going to move, she continued. It's going to hurt. Stay with me anyway. Hayes didn't respond, but he was listening. Walker signaled Cole. On my mark, he said. Cole shifted into position to help lift. Rachel placed one hand under Hayes' shoulder, the other stabilizing his torso. For a moment, everything paused at the edge of action. Then Walker spoke. Move! They lifted. Hayes cried out immediately, a sharp, broken sound cut off by pain and shock. Rachel kept him steady, adjusting pressure constantly as they shifted him into motion. The corridor suddenly felt narrower as they began moving. Each step forward came with resistance. Uneven ground, suppressed movement speed. Enemy fire growing more distant, but no less dangerous. Cole took the front. Walker stayed rear. Rachel stayed with Hayes. And for a short stretch of time, it worked. Until the radio crackled again, and this time, the message changed everything. Updated intelligence. Hostile convergence confirmed on extraction axis. You are no longer in a low-contact zone. Walker froze for half a second. Cole looked back. Rachel didn't stop moving, because she already knew what that meant. The real pressure wasn't behind them anymore. It was ahead. The corridor behind them was no longer the main threat. That realization settled in quietly, like a weight that didn't announce itself but made every step harder anyway. Rachel stayed locked to Hayes' side, one arm under his shoulders, the other controlling the bandaging that was already slipping from movement. Every few steps, she had to readjust pressure, rebalance his weight, keep his breathing from collapsing into shallow panic. He was still conscious in fragments, not fully awake, not fully gone, just enough to feel everything. Cole led the movement forward, weapon up, scanning what used to be a street, but now looked more like a collapsed channel between broken buildings. Walker stayed behind, constantly checking angles, his radio now useless noise in a system that had already shifted beyond their control. Movement speed is too slow, Walker said tightly. Rachel didn't look at him. If we go faster, he dies, she answered. That was the only equation she trusted now. Hayes' grip tightened briefly on her sleeve again, weak but intentional. Rachel leaned closer. You're doing fine, she said quietly. He tried to respond, but the sound broke before it formed into words. The wind picked up slightly, pushing dust through the broken street. Visibility dropped in uneven waves, clear for a second, then blurred again like the environment itself couldn't decide what they were allowed to see. Cole raised a hand. Contact possible ahead, he warned. Walker moved up slightly, checking the angle. Left building line, he confirmed. Rachel adjusted Hayes' position again, shifting his weight so Cole and Walker could maintain movement without breaking formation. Her arms were starting to feel it now, not exhaustion yet, but the beginning of strain that would come later. They weren't out. They were just moving through a longer problem. A burst of distant gunfire echoed somewhere ahead. Cole immediately stopped. Down, he said sharply. The team dropped into partial cover behind a collapsed vehicle frame. Rachel lowered Hayes carefully with them, keeping pressure on his wound without breaking stabilization. The moment they hit the ground, he groaned again, pain sharp enough to pull him briefly toward full awareness. "Stay with me," Rachel repeated. Walker peered over the edge of cover. "Enemy convergence confirmed," he said. "We're walking into a corridor sweep." Cole looked at him. "So what's the call?" Walker hesitated. That hesitation mattered. Because hesitation meant no clean answer existed anymore. Rachel checked Hayes' pulse again. Still there. Weak, but consistent. She spoke without looking up. "We can still make it if we move through the gap on the east side," she said. Walker turned slightly. "That's open ground," he replied. "It's faster," Rachel said, "and less predictable than staying in a known sweep path." Cole frowned. "She's not wrong," he admitted. Walker didn't answer immediately. Another distant burst of fire echoed closer this time. That made the decision for him. "Move on my mark," Walker said again. Cole nodded. Rachel tightened her hold on Hayes. "Ready?" she asked him softly. He didn't answer, but his fingers moved slightly against her sleeve. That was enough. Walker signaled. "Go!" They broke from cover. The open ground felt wrong immediately. Not because it was empty, but because it wasn't. It had visibility. That meant exposure. Every step was visible from too many angles at once. Dust shifted in unpredictable waves, making distances hard to judge. Cole moved first, fast but controlled. Walker followed. Rachel stayed closest to Hayes, partially dragging, partially supporting him. His weight was becoming harder to manage now, not because he was heavier, but because he was slipping deeper into shock. Halfway across, the first shot cracked near them. Then another. Cole returned fire instantly, dropping into a knee while scanning for direction. "Right side," he called. Walker moved to cover angle, firing short bursts. Rachel didn't stop. She adjusted Hayes again and kept moving. "Almost there," she told him. His breathing hitched. The second burst of fire came closer. A round struck the ground near Rachel's foot, throwing dirt into her leg. She didn't react outwardly, but she adjusted her stance and kept moving. Walker shouted. "Speed up," Rachel answered without looking. "I am." But she wasn't just moving fast. She was making sure Hayes didn't break during movement. That was the difference. They reached partial cover behind a broken concrete barrier just as another wave of fire passed overhead. Cole was breathing harder now. Walker checked the route ahead. "We're close to extraction perimeter," he said. "Define close," Cole muttered. "Too close to fail," Walker answered. Rachel lowered Hayes carefully again. His eyes were more open now. Not fully conscious, but aware enough to register movement, pain, voices. He looked at her. Rachel held his gaze for a second. "You're still here," she said again. His lips moved slightly. This time, a sound formed. "Why?" he tried. Rachel didn't answer immediately, because there wasn't a simple answer. Walker moved closer. "We need to move," he said again, urgency returning. Cole nodded. Rachel tightened Hayes' bandage one last time. Then she looked up at Walker. "If we move fast from here," she said, "he won't survive impact transitions." Walker understood what she meant. Every movement had cost now. Every step mattered more than the last. Cole spoke quietly. "We're either losing him or risking all of us." Rachel didn't argue. She just looked at Hayes and made her decision again. "We don't leave him here," she said. Walker stared at her for a long moment. Then he exhaled. "Then we finish it carefully," he said. Cole gave a short nod. "Let's end this movement," he added. They lifted Hayes again, this time slower, more controlled, every step deliberate. The final stretch toward extraction wasn't a sprint. It was a calculated refusal to abandon someone who could still be brought back. As they moved forward, the sound of extraction vehicles finally became audible through the dust. Real, close, anchored. Rachel tightened her grip. Hayes was still alive. barely. But still with them. And for Rachel Miller, that was enough to keep moving, no matter what it cost the rest of her. And that was the last step they had to take. The extraction point was finally within reach, and for the first time since the ambush, the team could see the line that meant safety instead of survival under fire. Rachel Miller didn't look back at what it had cost to get there. She only made sure Hayes was still breathing as they crossed into secured ground, because for her, the mission had never been about perfect decisions, only the ones that kept someone alive one more minute. And in the end, that was enough to bring them all home. And now, dear viewers, thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you soon.